If I'm no good at telling stories in a conversation, can I still be a writer? I think there are several things going on here. Conversation is a social activity. Speech requires certain muscle groups. Writing requires certain muscle groups. Socializing, speaking, writing all require concentration and creation. And all have different combinations of requirements and different needs, and all cause different stresses. Now, there may be some conclusive research that suggests or that shows that different parts of the brain are used when speaking from when writing. But there's also a great deal of research that shows that when you're writing, you use the same parts of the brain that control the muscles you use when you're speaking. So there must be some very close relationship between speaking and writing. But none of that changes the fact that there are a great many people who prefer writing stories to telling them aloud. In fact, most of the writers I've ever met. On the other hand, people who are highly articulate when speaking, but who have difficulty writing, they seem to be vanishingly rare. But people are hugely varied, so I wouldn't be at all surprised if such people do exist. But here's a harsh truth. Telling stories aloud is possibly the best way to improve your ability to tell stories. It's a harsh truth because a lot of writers would rather walk across broken glass than tell stories aloud to a group of real people. And if, for reasons of social comfort, you can't tell a story in live conversation, you have to find other ways of getting good at telling stories. And actually, most writers do find other ways. And in fact, there's a great deal of help and advice available as to how you can become good at telling stories without having to tell them aloud. But before you abandon the idea of developing your articulacy by telling your stories live, consider this. I am not comfortable socially. I don't like to be among a group of strangers or even acquaintances, and I hate having to make conversation. So, telling stories and anecdotes informally is an activity that I find stressful and exhausting. However, put me behind a lectern or on a stage, give me a microphone and a camera, and I'm in my element. The more structured and formal the situation, the more comfortable I feel and the more articulate I become. So, when I lead a storytelling workshop, there are a number of things I do to make the situation feel a little artificial. I won't give them all away, but for instance, one of them is that I rearrange the furniture so that it's slightly awkward for people to enter and leave the space. This gives people a sense of there being a kind of special boundary, and this has all sorts of consequences, but the main one is that they are aware that it's not a normal social situation. And at this point, they can then start putting the focus just onto a few limited cognitive skills that are involved in storytelling, and they can set aside the pressure to perform or the pressure to conform to social expectations. So by formalizing the situation, you change the type of interaction, and if you are socially awkward, or if like me you're just good at concealing that you're socially awkward, it may enable you to set aside your dislike for social aspects of storytelling and conversation and improve your ability to tell stories by just concentrating on telling stories.